Network presentation. Get the full story at PlayLifeYourWay.com. In a world where the top film franchises are either reboots, comic adaptations, or just an overhyped waste of time, Play Your Way Network is back, and this time it's personal. BK, Nate, and Eric will show you how to do it the Player Way.
It's on once again, Patron once again.
The Player Way.
Ladies and gentlemen, and everyone in between, with all due respect, it's your podcast DJ BK, helping you understand that you do your life and media and social distancing and the
Player Way.
And I never do this thing alone. I got the squad with me.
What's going on?
What's going on when you got a cast the size of a watermelon?
A watermelon
instead. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. With all due respect, I'm your podcast DJ, BK Jackson. I am here, and I'm going to make sure that you have all of the action when it comes to civic and social awareness. But we're going to start you off the Player Way. We're going to talk a little bit about some of the media that's going down, some of the cool movies, and well, right now maybe not cool movies, but some of the exclusives.
The Player Way.
Exclusive.
On your favorite networks that are online. But before we get started, hollering at my boys right now, starting off with my boy Nate. What's going down, Nate? How you doing, baby?
I'm doing well, man. Doing well. How are you?
What's up, man? How's your week been?
Week's been busy. I had a few days off last week, so I had to come back to work this week and just catching up. Yeah.
Nice. Producer James, how are we sounding? Are we sounding good? Are we looking luscious?
I think we're good, man. We're doing all right. How's everybody else?
Doing all right. And just right below me, we have the one, the only
corrupting the system.
You already know. Yeah, it's that time. You see me rocking the free-ish since 1865.
Nice. I love that shirt, man.
Shout out to Pris Nicole. She hooked me up with that. But yeah, man, I'm ready to do this thing. We got a good conversation coming up today.
We got a grand conversation, and that's like the perfect segue. So what we're going to first just kind of start off in is we're going to talk a little bit about what we're going to be discussing on this episode. On this episode, it is episode 61, Stop and Think About the Kids, part 3. You know, when we originally started about doing this series, the Player Way limited edition run, this was going to be a 4-part series that would only run the month of June. However, after the response we got after the first couple of weeks, it was a grand response. And as we started thinking more and more about it, we thought that we should add an additional episode. So the third episode, this episode is a more open discussion, and it's going to be more about the children. You can take the children.
That's not what I expected. I expected the
I believe the children
are exactly.
That's what I was thinking
too. Did you miss, Mac? Shout out to all my Martin fans out there. Anyway,
shout out to your commitment to that. That's what
right. You just kept on going. Just wouldn't stop. Don't stop.
What do we mean?
Can't stop. Won't stop.
Stop and think about the kids. What that means is we're gonna talk a little bit about how COVID is affected people on a more personal level. We've talked about the bigger concepts. We've talked about all of the stuff as it pertains to police brutality. We've talked about things as it pertains to the politics of it. We've even talked about the looting and the protesting and all that stuff. We're not going to take our foot off the gas, but we're just going to go in a different direction with it. We actually have Autumn Sonata. She's a podcaster, an IT specialist. She's a fan of Anonymous. So we're going to talk about a little bit of what Anonymous has been doing over, like just as an overall thing, and who Anonymous is, in case you don't already know who that is. And it's a different way of being protested. And then we're going to segue into how that's affected her career. She's already in a male-dominated field, so how has COVID made the impact her even more? And then she's got 5 children from the ages of like 5 all the way to 18. And her 18-year-old is a basketball player going into college this next year. It doesn't get any more intense than that. On top of that, her years troubles started with Kobe Bryant's death. Imagine what's going on in that household. I'm so excited I knocked my microphone. So y'all are going to want to stick around and hear those exclusives.
Exclusive. The Player Way.
Exclusive.
And as always, you can definitely stay a part of the conversation. Normally we would have a little bit more topic guides, but in this particular episode, because it's a little bit more open forum, look at the bottom. Don't forget to leave a comment and question. If you want your comment to come up on the screen, like Triple V's is doing right now. What up, Victor? That hair though, fresh. Thank you, baby. I always got to keep it.
The Player Way.
Although I wish mine was as fly and fresh as Derek's. That frock that he's gone over there with the Aquaman. Look at that. He got his little Jason Momoa thing going on.
I had to get the Aquaman thing because shout out to Zack Snyder. You know, we got the Snyder cut coming up, and I've been just swimming through all these cancellations. So I figured it was apropos to wear the Aquaman.
That cut, indeed.
Be the Aquaman, as Nate would say.
There you go. And of course, my beautiful wife, the Player Way, she's upstairs watching on her cellular device, making sure she's also a producer, making sure everything goes right. So if anything goes wrong, she runs downstairs off screen and tells me what's up. Oh, and matching with the beard. Oh, there you go. Hey, Triple V, man, that's what's up. This is Victor. Love you, man. Glad to have you on the thing. So if you want your comments to come up just like Triple V's and like Rachel's, if you're watching on my Facebook page, what you need to do is go on over to the Play Your Way Network page. That is the Play Your Way Network page. And you can take a look at what's going on over there. And when you make those comments on that page, they will pop up on screen. But if you don't want to move and you want to stay on my page, I will read those comments like so. I'll pull up my handy dandy cell phone, scroll on down. What up, Jonathan Clopton? What up, Stacy? See y'all. What up, Petty Jetty? I see you, B. So yeah, so if y'all want to comment that,
shout out to Nick Brown. He in that thing too.
Oh, and in that thing. Yeah, and then of course, if you're on anybody else's live stream as well, they will occasionally look over at their phone and let you know what's going on as well. Anybody else got anybody they want to shout out real quick before we get straight to the show?
No, I got all mine coming from the Play Your Way Network page. So
man,
it's
that's
cool.
the way to do it.
The Player Way.
Indeed. All right. Well, that's what's going on. We're gonna shut down this part of the conversation and straight move on in. So, Mr. Corrupted, what have we been watching, my brother? We spent a long time talking about stuff. I'm so scrambled right now. Help a brother out.
We have been talking about things. I think over the past couple weeks between you and I, we've probably watched the 13th about 5 times each because there's so much. There's so much information in that thing.
It's packed in there.
If y'all have not watched The 13th, it is on Netflix. The 13th is what it's called. Ava DuVernay. It's one of her documentaries. It's a show that when you watch it, when you first start watching it, you expect that it's going to be a series, but nay, it's like a full packed in series of everything. And what it starts with, the reason I wanted to watch it is because when you first start watching it, you don't really get where they're going. It doesn't come from an aspect that you think of. It goes from an aspect of slavery that is still legal to this day. The 13th Amendment made slavery legal for one type of person in our society, and that's somebody who's incarcerated. And so it goes through and talking about how slavery, post-slavery, there was this big dash to put Black people in prison over the smallest infractions. And that's something that kept going to this day so that they could rebuild and reconstruct the South, because after that Civil War, it was a huge mess. And without slaves being emancipated, there was nobody to clean all that up. And so you had things like colorism going on, which on another show last night, shout out to Alex Haynes on Unmuted Nation on Boss FM. Check him out. We talked about colorism last night. And colorism, you know, the brown paper sack test, that was a way to keep darker skinned Black people, more melanated Black people who were better to be out in the sunlight and not faint. they put them out there, and they made all kinds of vagrancy laws so that every black person had to have a job and have a place to stay, which is kind of hard when everybody lets you loose and you don't have the right to own anything. So it was already a setup from there, and it goes all the way up through now, and with all of the killings that have been going on, and how there's an unbalanced way of adjudicating on behalf of black people and those that beset them.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
man. And go ahead, James. Go ahead. I mean, jump in.
No, I was just going to mention that I believe it's also available for free on YouTube. So if you don't have Netflix, if you just one of those,
It is, yeah.
I don't want to call you weirdos, but just one of those people that's not part of the norm. If you can access YouTube,
Here. If you
can
I
access,
don't want to call you weirdos. I'll just call you the definition of it, though.
if you can,
why don't we just say this for all those people that want to, hey, where'd it go, that money?
yeah.
Let me say that money.
But I believe you can access it for free on YouTube as well. So there's no real reason, unless you just don't have access to the internet, you shouldn't be able to watch this. It's definitely something that every American should be informed about. So
Absolutely.
take it for what it is.
Absolutely.
It is.
What
It
else?
is free on YouTube.
There
Yeah.
you go. Thanks, Nate.
Yeah.
Thanks, Nate. Coming on.
Double checked.
There you go. CTF, tell us a little bit more. What's the next thing we got on the topic that people need to be aware of?
Man, you know me. I love the wonderland of rabbit holes, so I had to go ahead and check on Filthy Rich. Now that one goes into the depths and disgusting, grotesque, stomach twisting underbelly of sex trafficking that Jeffrey Epstein was involved with, and a lot of other famous people, politicians, actors, and athletes that you all know were also involved. There's pictures, facts, and receipts.
Hey, Derek, were the last two candidates in our last president election both implicated in Epstein's sex ring?
You know what? You asked that question, and the short
Allegedly.
answer is yes, and several others as well. That's still unaccounted for, and that is it's really an eye-opening series. I mean, I told myself after the series, and next time I see Epstein didn't kill himself, I'm like, he may not have, but let's not forget what a piece of excrement this guy and his social circle was. As well. Ruined dozens, and I say dozens, hundreds actually. The web spins out to hundreds of females that they just ruin their lives, change their whole aspect of just living and existing on this planet. And it just got me in a rabbit hole. I'm seeing what else is out there, and then I bounced from that to the family, and I don't even want to get into it.
Before you move on to that, if you have not watched, remind me of the title again, Derek.
Filthy Rich.
Filthy Rich.
If you've not seen Filthy Rich, I've seen it. It is captivating because it is captivating that it's captivating to know how easy it is if you have an incredible amount of money, it gives you an incredible amount of influence, and how many people want to be near you just because you're affluent, and what you can do with the laws in this country, what you can make happen on your behalf. And it happened right in front of everybody's face, ours included, and we not realize it. And all it takes is for you to know how to pay the right people in the media and have the right PR agent at your side to switch the words around. Like, for example, one of the legal implications of setting this man free is the terms that they put in the I want to say contract, but it's not contract, but in the plea deal for him is that they kind of named everyone in a big group as employees, as workers, when these were really 14-year-old kids. So when it went on television, they said that these personal masseuses accused him of all these things. And then when they go on television, because it's years later after they've come forward, they're adults. So none of us got that these people these women we saw on television were 14, 12, 13, 14-year-olds that were forced into sex work. They were raped, taken away from their families, gone around the world with it, a full sex trafficking ring that was being run out of Palm Beach, Florida, which is insane because I was working in Palm Beach at certain points. So like, it's crazy to know that I was in the city that this stuff was going on and no one said the wiser of it.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. It's like there's so many people involved, and whether they partook or not, they're all complicit.
They are.
It's really eye-opening.
And his assistant is caught in the wind, man. Like she was the main one behind. No one knows where she is like right now.
Right.
She vanished. And she was the main.
She was
the main net runner.
Yeah.
It is a difficult watch. Because you hear a lot about you heard a lot about the case, you heard about Jeffrey Epstein, you heard about what he did, but you don't get the gravity of it until you watch the series. Like it's a huge weight, and it was very hard for me to finish it. Just because I'm not saying you shouldn't watch it, but it's difficult, really.
It's a lot to digest. Definitely, yes, it's definitely a lot to digest, and why? And I want to say it's a 6-part series.
That's about right. That's
5 or 6 part series.
Yeah,
but it just goes into so much detail about all these things that we just heard whispers about, and once you realize the powers that be, and then the police forces that had every single thing you need to arrest, convict, and put behind bars just being pressed. Mm-hmm. If the FBI backs off your case, what do you do then?
What do you do?
All right, I'm not even, man. Don't even get me hype on this. It's just once you start seeing the powers that be, that the affluences, as you mentioned, BK, it makes you curious about it, which is what led me into finding that other rabbit hole of the family, where you see all these powerful and that's a whole nother docuseries.
So we just got through talking about Filthy Rich. Nick Brown, as you see at the bottom of your screen right now, no country profits more from human trafficking than the USA. So we got the Crown on human trafficking. If you go back to the 13th, it starts off. It tells you that North America is home to, I believe, only 11% of the population of the world, and then but we own 25% of all of the prisons in the world. So we got more prisons than we have population here in the United States, and we're still building them. So we got those two facts, but we're like 8th in education or something like that.
Yeah, highest in the world in incarceration.
And then Derek,
not even close.
Religion front.
Well, yeah, when that's set up to the family, and this was something that
it's called The Family.
It's called The Family. Now, there is another movie on Netflix with Robert De Niro. Don't get confused. This one is a docu-series. Okay,
completely different.
Called The Family. This is based on the teachings, if I can use that as a lack thereof, of Doug Coe. And Doug Coe, once you start learning about this man, you see powerful world leaders over decades of time and their constituents around this person. Everybody knows him. Everybody knew him, and everybody that has any sort of dip into wealth and 2, 3, 4 commas in their bank account, they know this guy. And it goes, and this is presented by somebody who was brought in and a part of it. So I always put stock and value into those type of docu-series that have someone who's tied to it, involved in it. Like Waco, we praise that because it had survivors and the FBI negotiator. I praise this because it has actual members, and these are interviewing Republican politicians, Democratic politicians, independent country CEOs. It goes into detail on a lot of people, and it's just something that you definitely want to you want to make yourself aware, just so you can do some more research, because no one else is going to do it for you.
This is most definitely we didn't intend to do this, ladies and gentlemen, and everyone, with all due respect, but this is quickly turning into the conspiracy episode of 2022.
But what if it's a conspiracy?
How you doing over there, Nate?
No, I'm good.
It's time to talk conspiracies, brother. We got damn conspiracies going on, because if you believe in the Bilderberg Group, if you believe in a one world order, then you need to be watching The Family on Netflix, okay? Because there's definitely something going on in our country, and it's completely linked. It's completely linked to the National Prayer Breakfast. What if I told you that the National Prayer Breakfast that we have here in the United States happens in every major superpower around the earth? Would that surprise you?
What is National Prayer Breakfast?
Help him out, James.
I don't remember exactly what time of year. I believe it's February. That they have basically in Washington D.C. They have all politicians come in. The president is the person that is at the head of this event. Basically, it's just, as he says, the National Prayer Breakfast is supposed to be a day of prayer, but it's where all politicians get together. And it was created by this person that Derek was talking about, Doug Coe.
Absolutely.
Is it like I'm sorry,
it's a religious.
Is it an
Christian,
actual breakfast? Like
yeah,
so it's an actual breakfast that is actually held by the White House in recognition of Christianity. So here's the
Nate. It's a UN meeting every year. to put it succinctly, it's like a UN meeting.
Oh, okay.
All these world leaders, but it's nothing. It's televised. It's like, here's a prayer breakfast, but we don't have any details as to how deep this goes until I didn't know anything about it until I got deep into this family. So once you realize, you're like, oh wow, everybody who's everybody and has they're one click away from being able to start any major conflict around the planet. They're in this room and they've been talked to by all these people and they're all interwoven and have been for decades and decades. And it just, like I said, I know a lot of people out there, they're like, it's a documentary, it's going to have an agenda. But this is just, it's just open and honest facts, easy things that you can verify, and that's why I'm definitely promoting it, because it's not too deep under the tinfoil hat, because these are easy finds on page one.
And not only that, but like, to take it a step further, Nate, you remember how there was a speculation and investigation on the president possibly having a backdoor tunnel of communication tunnel back to Putin? Yeah, and they couldn't prove it. This film tells you who was convicted of the spy that communicated back and forth, and they don't come out and say that it's Trump, but they show it on screen. In the episode right after the episode about the leak to Russia, it's all about President Trump being their chosen president. And on top of that, Nate, another reason why you want to watch this is every president since Eisenhower has been selected, even Obama, by this family. They've been backed by this family. You gotta watch it. It starts off so unassuming.
I mean,
hey, we're just hanging out.
Yeah, we're just hanging out.
Good values, man.
I've always said for years,
that's it.
The super rich you're introduced to a completely different world that us common folk have no idea of,
Right.
And to be honest with you, I work really hard so I can one day
be in the family. Okay, all right, we know you.
That's the only way you're going to make real change is if you're part of, like, honestly. Like,
and the change he's talking about is not actual social change. He's talking about money.
Money. Make that change. Make that change. No, I mean, one of the biggest implications that they have in this show, in this documentary, is that this organization / David Coe is the main reason why there's so much church involved in our state.
Yeah.
And the reason why that's a big deal is because the Second Amendment assures us that
not second
state.
Exactly. First Amendment, actually. And then First
Amendment is
no.
It's written in the Constitution that you need to separate. Let's say
it.
Yeah.
But I said Second Amendment because I got a gun on me right
That's
now.
why I never agreed with them putting them stamping "In God We Trust" on our money. Like,
bro, that's 100%. So that's the thing is I don't want to get into it because I don't want to this whole episode, and we got a guest that's waiting backstage for us. So we got to move on. But anyway, if you are a conspiracy person, this is the episode for you for sure. Because ladies and gentlemen, and everyone in between, with all due respect, Autumn Sonata is in the building. Autumn Sonata.
Guys.
Welcome.
Hey.
Welcome to the show.
Hello, Autumn.
I have to kind of prepare
Crowd is
my
live today.
sound effects.
Say it
I
again.
never know what's coming next with BK and these sound effects. I gotta be prepared to talk at any moment.
Hey, the only reason why we have sound effects is to keep people awake during the podcast. So as soon as you go to sleep, you can have all kinds of things going down, man. You never know what's gonna happen.
Funk Master Flex.
Yeah, I don't need to go to bed hearing conspiracy theory in my dreams. So.
Exactly. Before we move on, Autumn, and we want to give you time to get comfortable in the Playway Podcast living room. Want to shout out to Ryan Clopton, who is watching. He says 5% of population. Oh yeah, so he corrected me. I said 11.
Yeah, 5%.
It's 5% of the world's population. Shout out to our news fact checkers out there. Uncle Henry, what up, Henry? Uncle Hank, as we call him. Loving the conversation. Glad to have you here, sir. And then again, Ryan Clopton just finished Filthy Rich. And then Eleonora just watched in, came on in. What up, Ellie? Helping me find an agent for my career right now. I'm trying to get some of that Bilderberg scratch right now myself. Exactly, man.
all y'all gonna be in the family.
Exactly.
I want to. If you can't beat them, you join them, man.
So, Autumn, let's talk a little bit about your background. It's my understanding that you're an IT specialist in the field. You're a big Anonymous fan, and you also have a family. You're a single mother with 5 children, correct?
Yes. So I've been in IT for about. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Go ahead.
Okay. So yeah, I've been in IT for about 7 years. My last role was with a very reputable company as an API specialist. I honestly left that company last year, and I transitioned into home inspections and doing some freelance app development work. So that's where I'm at now. Transitioning into that field was really hard, but it did allow me the freedom to move about, especially with COVID and everything, still in my social joy. So honestly, I'll probably go back into the brick and mortar setting or the IT field, based on the fact that all these changes are taking place with COVID and the kids' schooling and such. So that's something I'll be back into here shortly. What else? Yeah, I have 5 children, single mom, ranges from 5 to 18. I have 4 boys, and my girl is 9 years old. She's right in the middle of those 4 boys.
Wow.
So yeah. Okay. What else? Yeah, I'm a huge Anonymous fan. I'm a groupie.
So all right, let's go. So Anonymous groupie in the building. So let's do it. So let's talk. So let me set the mood for you. Tell us a little bit. Let's start with just the beginning of the social unrest. What are some of the things that Anonymous has been doing?
Conspiracy.
Oh yeah. So they are basically they're a hackers group. Unknown hackers who basically work behind the scenes to bring social justice to the American citizens. So they're basically anti-government. And basically, in a nutshell, what they do is they expose the secrets of the elites. So when you guys were talking about child trafficking and sex slaves and things like that, they put all that stuff on Front Street. They're not for any right wing or left wing. They don't believe in government at all. They believe that the government should be afraid of people and not the people afraid of government. So when it came to situations like the George Floyd killing, they were the first to break the officer's information. What else was it? They exposed Obama's birth certificate, and that's all online. It's been online. What else? They exposed all of Trump's emails between himself and Hillary Clinton, exposed her emails. What else are they doing? They're doing a lot of work behind the scenes with some of the Russian anti-racism protesters or what have you. I forgot what it's called. They do a lot of work with femicide and so basically they expose. Sorry.
You good?
They expose the elites for who they truly are. And honestly,
say that.
Right.
You got to understand. I know how often you listen to the show, but Derek over there in that pane right next to you is Mr. Corrupting the System.
Corrupting.
So he is all
system.
about. Derek, ask some questions about Anonymous that are on your mind right now, brother.
How do I put them in the White House to be the president and create their own government? Tell me how I do that. How do I get a representative from them to be like, let's go ahead and open this whole can and be like, here's everything. How do I do that?
Yeah, you can't find Anonymous. Like it's not an organization or a group of people. It's a movement. It's a lifestyle. You can't identify not one member of Anonymous. They have several accounts, but again, Anonymous means you're not to be identified. So I could be a member.
They can give me an earpiece and I'll be the face. You know what I'm saying? I'll take that smoke. I'll take that smoke.
Autumn,
Beat
don't
the door
give it
down.
away. There's a reason why I have Autumn on here talking about Anonymous and she's an IT specialist. Don't look. Listen.
Yeah. So the funny thing is, I was telling my friend about it. I kind of whipped him to it.
Can't get it at.
He went to school for cybersecurity as a cybersecurity analyst. That's his major in school. And I just exposed him to the dark web yesterday. So he's freaking out. He thinks I'm part of Anonymous just because I gave him that information. But now he's freaking out because he's finding information that he can't find on Google or any other searchable search engine.
There you go, man. That's what it's all about. So now that we've gotten past all of the conspiracies and we've gotten past all of the fun stuff as far as allowing your imagination to run wild and give everybody out there, we've given you plenty of things to Google about, to talk about over the next couple of weeks, things to research. Shout out to Petty Jetty, Jet Trey. I want to be super rich without riding the GOAT Freemason term or not being able to tell my family where I'm going in the first week of February. Nick Brown, Nick B.
Oh, that's smooth. First week of February.
Yeah,
You, Jet.
You're not supposed to know about that meeting. And Nick Brown, you don't have those changes to money and pledge until the red scare. We didn't have those changes to money and pledge.
Yeah, in God we trust is we.
Yeah, God. Exactly. Oh, okay. I see okay, never mind. Hold on. Nick Brown is on something. What Nick Brown is trying to tell you, ladies and gentlemen, everyone in between, is we talked, remember that the family we talked about Eisenhower being the first president that was put into the White House by the family, supposedly, allegedly. Well, that pledge didn't pop up on the money until after Eisenhower.
Until Eisenhower, according to Wikipedia. Yeah,
exactly. So just letting you know, we're giving y'all all of the exclusives.
The player.
I'm definitely going to tie that into a later thing that I'll definitely wait till the organics bring it up again, but it's going to tie perfectly to that, Nick. That's a good segue.
That's awesome, man. All right, so what we're going to get into is we're going to talk a little bit more. We're going to dig a little deeper. Hold on for a second. Let's see. Any more comments? No more comments. Okay, so we're gonna dive a little deeper, and we're going to talk a little bit more about our main subject for this episode. Talking about episode 61. Stop and think about the kids with our special guest, Autumn Sonata. So it's time to take a deep dive the player way.
It's time to take a deep dive. The player way.
And so we got Autumn Sonata here. We do a lot of drops for the audio side of things because we are an audio podcast that you can find at playlifeyourway.com. You can always get that information there. We have all kinds of stuff for you to watch and keep yourself entertained with, including but not limited to the Player Way podcast. Every single episode is there in audio form. So you click that, you can get us on Spotify, you can get us on iTunes, you can get us on Google. And then if you just want to watch a replay of this in case you didn't get here at the very beginning, on that website, we'll have the actual video version of this as well. So you can watch that and you can get all the cool graphics and see our beautiful faces, including this gorgeous beard and Derek's beautiful Aquaman hair. And of course, the illustrious Autumn Sonata as well. Okay, so that's what's going down there. Anything else that I'm thinking about in terms of housekeeping wise that we need to? Oh yeah, of course. The other thing that we just added to PlayLifeYourWay.com, the Play Your Way Network, is season 1 of the Captain's Challenge. Okay, if you want to see Derek and BK eat all kinds of crazy, hot, spicy challenges and get them done and conquer them, because until you are the man, you can't be the man until you beat the man. Woo! That's what you got to do. And Nate, woo! There's even a challenge with Nate on there that he attempted for a little bit.
Yeah, I don't
remember that, Nate.
Nate's demeanor right now on screen is exactly what his demeanor on and in there. So if you ever want to get a little bit of what we got going on that, go on playlifeyourway.com and you can get some exclusives of what we got content wise, including but not limited to the Captain's Challenge.
Bet. Place your bets here. We got a gentleman's bet right over here. Let's get it going, boys.
And one last thing, I had to play that drop because
That's
it's
nostalgic right there.
The reason why I had to play that is because there's some of you out there who have been asking me what's going on with the gentleman's bet. In fact, Edward Thompson, E.M. Thompson, shout out to Edward. He had a call with me earlier this week, and he was like, what happened to the gentleman's bet? One of the best things about the Player Way podcast is you guys always were really good about box office stats. Well, obviously, because the box office is closed right now, can't talk about that.
Shut down.
But it will be coming back. So we will be getting the gentleman's bets going on in the not too distant future. We just got to figure out how we're going to come back, if we come back at all, past the limited edition series. So that's what's going on there. And now we got all the housekeeping out of the way. Autumn, thank you for your patience for enduring that. Now let's get on with episode 61's topic, the main topic. Stop and think about the kids 2020 vision part 3. So let's talk about your son is a basketball player, and tell us a little bit about his career in high school so far and how that was impacted by the first major thing that happened to us this year, losing the legendary Kobe Bryant.
Okay, so just to be honest with you, my son was not the star player of his basketball team. He's never been the star player of his basketball team. But I think what helped him stand out and got him to where he is now, where he's going, is that he was always persistent about his goal, and he always stayed focused about his goal and where he wanted to go. So when Kobe passed away, it impacted him in a way that it wasn't one that was detrimental to him, honestly, because he's not a big Kobe fan. He didn't study Kobe's game. He studied Michael Jordan and James Latham. Who was it?
That's right. You got it.
From the Celtics, right? So I'm sure I got the right names. I hate messing up names.
He made notes for his mom.
Jason Tatum.
There you go.
Yeah. So when Kobe passed, it was, I guess the way he described it, it was an unreal, reality check for him, because he wasn't expecting someone who seemed so grand and untouchable to, just die suddenly. I think when he first told me, he honestly broke the news to me. I was downstairs watching TV, and he was following something online, and he saw the news, and at first he was like, oh, it's not real. And when he told me, I said, it's not real. So him and his friends were having a dialogue about it. And then it came, it was confirmed or what have you. And he was kind of like in a state of shock. He couldn't believe that this man who was actually a real person, was made, it became real for him when he passed away. Because he identified him as being a good person. Of course, a legend in the game for him. So it didn't hit him as hard as it may have hit a major fan, but it made things a little more real as far as his focus on basketball. They did a little tribute for Kobe on his team when they wore all of their Kobe Bryant shoes and drew little sayings on them or whatever. But I think for him, it just made everything a little more real.
Yeah.
As far as
and I mean,
the game of basketball.
That's the word for 2020 is it got real, because COVID then drops in right after Kobe Bryant's death. So what was it like to go from like a national tragedy that we were all kind of mourning for, and then going into this national emergency?
I think for my teenage son especially, that hit him harder than anything else, because here it is, his senior year. He's really starting to shine. He got, acceptance into Penn State. He's got all these ideas and things going, things he wanted to do with his friends, his girlfriends for his celebratory events and things like that. And it all gets shut down by this virus that he doesn't even believe is real.
Yeah.
So, here I come with all the restrictions and concerns and worries, telling him what he can and cannot do. And his main concern or argument was, this is my last year, experiencing senior life, with my friends and all the people I grew up with. So I can't be in the house. I can't be restricted like this. This is not fair.
Right.
And then when he made the front, the cover of his yearbook, which is a major deal, because his school,
because you said he was on the cover.
Yeah, well, he in his game, he was not a star. Like, he was one of those kids. He's very textbook, and basketball is more of a logical.
Hard on him. Your son is a star. You trying to keep him humble. You the big baller brand.
In the game, overall, my dude, he's a star. Overall, my dude's a star. But basketball, from AAU to like 11th grade, he was not that dude. I'm just gonna be honest.
So you made the cover of your book, but then he's not even able to be in school because of COVID. What is that like?
It was hard. It was hard for him. It was hard for me because I wanted him to live, and experience this time in his life. But I had to be honest and put those restrictions on him. And there was attitudes throughout. My kid is a very calm, chill kid. But when those restrictions came, he turned into a little, he didn't want to be understanding all the time. And I had to understand that. This isn't about parenting. It's about being understanding because this is his time. Right. So I let him do certain things, but I still had to pull the reins in sometimes, and he wasn't feeling that.
What's the trickle down with the rest of your children? Like, how did they take the initial restrictions as well when it got real tight?
Well, honestly, my younger children didn't really feel it as much because I do things with them around the house and outside all the time. That just involves us, and then they have one another. So, unlike many other children who are single, the only child or what have you, they're in the house with themselves and there's nobody else to interact with. Mine have, each other, which is amazing. And we also, we go outside, we do different things in the house, and cooking, they love to cook now. And we get creative in the house. So it hasn't impacted them as much as it has my teenager. But they're still ready. Like, they usually travel to New York during the summer. They can't do that this year. So that's one of their drawbacks. But, it hasn't been as bad as one would expect from me.
So as things are recovering, you already kind of addressed that you were one of the smart ones. You kind of had your career kind of ready for a what if scenario. So you got to continue on working while things were happening. So I imagine when the social unrest and when Ahmaud Arbery's story kind of came forward and was revealed, and then you got George Floyd right behind that and Breonna Taylor right all at the same time. You got Black children that you're raising. What is it like to go from, your oldest son is getting this sobering wake up that life can go like that with actually I can do it with this finger. And then you go into understanding the COVID situation to try to stay safe. We're right about to open as a country, and then these 3 deaths. Take us through like what's going on now.
For my oldest child, who I focus on more when it comes to talking to him about the current state of our society and that fear. We were talking today, and I asked him again, and I asked him plenty of times, like, what is your procedure, your thought process if you were to get pulled over? He's been pulled over twice. One for he rear-ended a guy, wasn't paying attention. And the other time, the light in my tail light was out. He got pulled over. And said, "What's your thought process?" Now, my son has read The Art of Deception, so he uses manipulation as to to help get someone's fear, their defenses down. So as he described to me, say for instance, he got pulled over by an officer. He said, in order to kind of manipulate them out of fear, because I am a black male, and I'm, pretty tall and, muscular, what have you, I kind of dig into this state of fear as if I am fearful of them, so that I don't strip their power away from them. And I thought that was pretty smart. But at the same time, you have those power tripping officers, sociopaths, who will see that as a reason to, be further aggressive. Exactly. So I told him you have to kind of watch body language and be, cognizant of how the officer is moving so that you can adjust accordingly. But, I think the fear is still there regardless of what happens, because he has seen, the videos online. He knows that kind of injustice has always existed. It's not something new. As he told me, he said they just capture it on camera now. It's not anything new. But he's very aware. We're very big into spirituality and mindfulness, so he can feel when the atmosphere is different and something is changing, and he can adjust pretty well on his own. So I'm lucky and blessed that he has that, that attunement that most children don't have, because I never wanted him to be one of those children who were overactive or over reactive to situations that could cost him his life.
Getting him mentally ready. Let me ask you this. What was your experience like growing up when you were about his age, as far as having to be prepared for the police? Like, was that something that your parents like got you ready for, or was that something that kind of happened more organically for you, as opposed to him having to kind of learn about it through you?
It was never a conversation between me and my parents. It was never a
question. I already knew
it was never a concern, and not because anything, any environment. I grew up a military brat. Yeah. And so I looked at policemen and military personnel as heroes. And so I felt like I was always protected because of the environment that I grew up in. Like everyone was a hero that wore a badge and wore BDUs.
Yeah.
So it was never a concern for me until we transitioned into civilian life coming here to Georgia. That's when I realized that racism was very real, and that I was at a disadvantage in life, in professional, in relationships, all that became very evident to me. But it wasn't until we transitioned out to civilian life that I saw that.
Yeah, it's often interesting, especially when you're talking to someone who's grew up on a military base and was in the military, because they're often insulated from what's going on in that type of situation, because there's such a different standard in the military than there is outside in the civilian world, as you put it. So it's often interesting to hear that perspective, because it's almost always a very similar story in that sense.
Yeah, Derek, I know you had your hand up. What did you want to hop in with?
Just she hit on so many great points, and as a parent and a step parent, when she mentioned what was the conversation to cops, same thing here. I didn't have a conversation about police or cops or anything growing up. All I knew was have the dome line on, because you'll get pulled over and cops will think you're doing something illegal. That was all I knew about cops until it was across my face and I had to experience it firsthand. So as a parent, I look back and I wish I had that. I wish somebody had told me to be prepared for it, because I had some rough learnings growing up, and now I'm definitely telling my kids, hey, you know how you go to school with crazy kids and normal kids? I work with crazy people and normal people. You're going to walk past those people every day, and sometimes those people have a badge. Sometimes those people are in a position of power to where they can do something to you and you can't do anything about it, even if they're the bad guy. And I have to have that conversation, because I didn't get that conversation about police. And I know that's the focus and everything right now. So just hearing your points of being forced into the situation where we didn't really necessarily have those conversations growing up, we just had to experience it. It shifts the way that I dole out that information to the young ones, to anybody, and it's something I wish I had. It's something that we have to have. It's a forced conversation now that they're exposed to, and especially kids nowadays, they have the whole internet, every single thing, just trying to keep them safe from the bad things out there. They're coming to me with questions. Hey, I saw this video. Hey, I heard about this. Hey, what's this? And you just have to have these conversations now, and there's just no blocking it, no fronting it. There's no hiding it now. There is no going back.
Yeah, and Ellie, shout out to Ellie. She hopped in real quick. She said, I can attest to what James is saying is true, as well as a military brat. So both Autumn and James had those notes about being military brats and what that's like. And what's funny is, Autumn, we talked about this on our police brutality episode. We had Marco, shout out to Marco Matthews on here, and we talked about the image of 911 and of the first responders as it was when we were children. As a civilian child, we believed everything was cool too. We came up in the Nancy Reagan period of time.
Scrub McGruff, take
Yeah,
a bite out of
Scrub
crud.
McGruff.
We're talking about Dare.
Dare,
yeah.
all of that stuff, man. So
Dare. Red Ribbon Week.
I remember when kids came, when cops came to your elementary school and gave you like a career day thing and instilled high fives and trust in the community. And now, shout out to Jerome Stewart. Shout out Jerome. He sent me this video earlier this week of somebody's like ring doorbell camera, and they you can see like this kid is outside by himself. There's no audio. He's playing basketball. A little small kid, black kid, and as off screen, you don't know what's coming, but he sees something and he runs behind his dad's Jeep. And then the police drive by slowly, and then he comes out and doesn't miss a beat and goes back to playing basketball. Like the way we train kids now, I'm
That's
getting
so
chills.
loud.
I mean,
That's so loud.
isn't that
That's
crazy?
So loud.
Like now, you train like it's. Let's go to Autumn.
Before it was like
Yeah.
truck drivers. You wanted to pull the horn.
Yeah,
I was gonna say, like, going to Autumn. Like, is that something that community outreach? Is that something that they still do for kids these days? You know, it's like we had the Dare program, like he was saying. Is this something they actually even do for kids? You know, young kids.
No, I have yet to see a program like that in my neighborhood or in my children's school. Of course, they have things.
They don't have Dare T-shirts anymore. Like that's not a thing anymore.
I
I don't
have
think it
honestly, I have my
No,
5
they
children.
don't.
They're in 4. Well, now it'll be 3 different schools, but they were in 4 different, schools. I have yet to see one come home or inquire or even advertise anything about Dare.
That's crazy. And Dare, you got 4 kids at home as well. What material did they send them home with?
I know when it comes to police officers, and there was Drug Awareness Week. Showing my age, that was Red Ribbon Week when I went to school.
Red Ribbon.
What was that? Red Ribbon Week. Say that 10 times fast.
www.
But I remember, like I said, for my own. I know you asked me about my children, but I'm just going to parallel this. For my days of elementary, I remember a police officer coming to school, and I remember the interactions and how it was. It was like a celebrity was there at school. A police officer came by. Oh my God, this is incredible. And then by the time I started getting older in junior high and high school, and then there was an officer at the school, but he wasn't there to tell me about career day. He was there to make sure things didn't go left, which, I get it. We got there. But even as a teenager, I didn't even realize the impact of what that meant. You know what I mean? Private schools aren't patrolled. You know what I mean? Public schools are patrolled. And once I started realizing that even the officers that I went to school with daily looked at me like I could be a problem just because, and then it started shifting my view. And I say all that to prep for my kids today. They don't even look at. I take my stepson Jace. He wanted to be a police officer for forever and a day, up until I want to say about a year and a half ago, and he straight up said, well, they just don't seem as heroic as possible. And it wasn't due to pulling of, it wasn't due to murders. He said, well, they just don't seem like a heroes. And now he's a little more advanced of the way he communicates, and I quote, I don't think they're the heroes I saw them to be. And I want to be a hero when I grow up. And him saying, and when you out of the mouths of babes, when I heard that, I was just like, what happened in at the time, your 6 about to be 7-year-old life to make you change your opinion on a police officer? You know what I mean? It took me a long time to get there. Mm-hmm. So, you have to take a step back and be like, what's their perception? How is the perception going across all these other kids that are growing up that don't want that as a profession, especially right now? Send a cop to school career day right now. It's going to be a bad deal for them. They're probably, you know what I mean? And I'm not saying they're all bad. That's a whole nother rabbit hole in conversation. I'm just saying the perception right now.
Yeah.
I mean, no one's mad at firefighters. That's all I'm saying. No one's mad at firefighters.
Yeah. And I think you hit the nail right on the head is, I've been having conversations with police officers as well online on other shows and such. And, a police officer singular is no different than a human being. A human being is a good person. Human beings will eat each other, when tragedy goes down, when trouble happens. And so when it comes to police officers, no one's saying that a police officer individually is bad. It's that as a group, the perception is that the trust has been broken. Autumn, what are you? I don't want to get in too much into what you're teaching your kids because that's between you and your family. But how have you been handling perceptions with your children, if you have been able to do anything at all about it?
In any profession that anything that I talk to my children about, I come to them at the angle of mental health. How to read body language, how to scan your environment. I think that that's something that a lot of parents skip out on. We tend to, most of us want to generalize police officers and make our kids, inject this sort of fear around that profession, when your average, your mail delivery guy or your grocery store clerk could have the same mental issues as a police officer and could snap and harm you. And the only difference is that you trust a police officer to protect you.
Going postal. That used to be a phrase. You remember that, Autumn? Going postal.
Right. Yeah. But that same trust is put in your close friends or some of your family members or your bus driver or your teacher. And there's teachers out there that inflict the same type of harm and mental damage that police officers do. So it's not. I don't think we should come at it from a perspective of this profession is bad because of a few bad apples, but to watch people's mental health. So I teach my kids how to look at people's their body language, how they speak to you, what they do when they're not aware that you're around, so that they're aware of who to trust and how to move around them. My oldest son. It's funny, we went to a grocery store a few weeks back and we saw a former classmate of mine who is now a police officer. And when I told him that after we left, now mind you, I knew this guy, all through high school. He's a great guy. But when I told my son he was a police officer, he was like, "Are you sure you trust him?" And him saying that without knowing him was just like, yeah, that bias is already embedded based off what you've seen on TV, what your friends have experienced. The stories that you've seen, but it's very unfortunate. I have to talk to him all the time about watching people's actions and their body language, because it's not just restrained to police officers. It can be anybody.
You're not wrong about that. And what's weird about it is it seems to be that at home, because there's a lack of training and development in that field, and we're hearing it from all kinds of officers who are speaking out, that training is underfunded, that they need more training, they need to have more interactions with the community. So since they're not doing the training, you're having to do the training for them through your children. So that it's like defensive driving. Like you got to get them to take a course in how to handle conflict resolution and all of these things so they know how to de-escalate themselves.
Well, then I think that's where it should start. Honestly, I think if we start and took the responsibility and the privilege as parents to teach our children from home, then they wouldn't have to depend on the system to do it for them. Because the system's always going to go with what's imposed on them. So it's going to be a blanket, education like schools is now. And I think that we know our children best and we know how to get to them, their learning, pattern. And so it is our privilege and our duty to do that for them anyway.
Indeed. I got Dusty Ritchie. Shout out to Dusty. He says, sometimes I feel that officers can get into the mob mentality just as easy as any other group. He also said they were bringing, back when he was in school, they were bringing dogs into school when we were in class and when we were in junior high. I think he was talking about like drug dogs. Because they would I remember they used to do that at our school too. Just to
Canine unit.
work with them, canine unit and all that stuff. But yeah, let's go back to what Dusty said. Sometimes
mob mentality.
Yeah, that officers can get into the mob mentality just as easy as any other group. There's a YouTube channel that I like to watch called Audit the Audit. I highly recommend it to anyone to watch. It's a YouTube channel dedicated to understanding the law of being stopped by an officer and what you can or cannot say, what you can and cannot do. And that person who has a YouTube channel, they are very familiar with the law. They give you a grade as far as whether you did a great job with the police or not, and then they give a grade to the officer who responded and helping you understand how to do things. And so that's something that you see a lot in when you see interactions with police. You see that they tend to pile on, and some people have taken to calling them, "Oh, the gang's here. You got your gangsters with you," and police don't understand that. But what they have to understand is, it's no different than if Autumn, if her middle child was getting picked on, and all the brothers decide to come over and handle that, they're gonna think something is going on too, because it's all these.
That's how it works.
What's going on? You have to teach your children to handle things on a one-on-one basis, but it's kind of crazy because that's not how the police respond to things. So, Derek, tell me how are you handling training your children with that mob mentality that Dusty's talking about?
Well, it's something I speak to, and Autumn, great point with like saying it starts at home. That seems like such a simple statement, but so many things do start here. We got to be involved, and I try my best to share my own personal experiences. I told the kids about one of the first times I saw the mob mentality is I was involved in a traffic stop. I was in the back seat. I was the only one requested for ID. And finally, the driver spoke up and was like, "Hey, man, just so you know, my brother's an officer in New York." And he showed him this piece of paper out of his wallet, and where the officer kind of shined the light and everything. Still requested my ID. But then he said, "All right, everything's good here." And it was the first time I saw that what, you just showed him a card that your brother is an officer in New York, 1,600 miles away. What'd that have to do with here? He's like, "Oh, well, he's an officer. So, he's like, this thing's got me out of hundreds of tickets." And the guy I know was 10 years my senior, and I was 19, so this guy's almost 30, and I'm trying to do the math. Hundreds of times you've got out of this just by showing a card that your brother works, and I use those instances to describe to my kids, hey, it goes to the force. Not everybody's going to be good on the force, but they're still going to have each other's back, and it's something that you and I have talked about, BK, many of times, that behind that blue line. Hey, you're in here. We got your back regardless of the wrong you do. And I was talking to another good friend of mine, Mario Young, today, and I was like, in my day job, I can't commit insurance fraud all day, every day, and then my fellow insurance adjusters be like, hey, that's our boy Derek. Okay, you let him rob the company and policyholders blind, and we got his back, and I get to keep my job. I would be fired yesterday. Then and there, because that's the standard of where I work. That's the standard of the regulations that I'm in. It's the legal federal standards, and that just doesn't apply. And it goes from the beat cop all the way up to the FBI head director of the FBI. And when you see that, and you have to paint this large mural for your children to say, hey, this is how it is. This is the real world. I didn't want to show you this ugly underbelly, but I have to tell you how it is. They're going to have each other's backs, so I need to have your back, and I need you to have your own back, because your confidence will be your shield to the world. If you're not confident, if you don't have this knowledge, then I've failed you, and I can only present to you what I know, what I've experienced, and here are the facts.
You are one.
I have to instill that and hope, and take those fears and concerns that I have. Forward with that information, keeping themselves protected.
Got you. You broke up at the very end there, but I think we got what you were saying. Can you hear us? Okay. Yeah, you can. You can. Okay.
Yeah, I was just I was wrapping them up, just saying I want them to keep that knowledge, to keep them protected, and that's all you can hope for. You hope that they take what you give them and move on.
That's all you can do. That's all you can do. I really love that segue into the conversation, and I want to read some comments real quick. Of course, Captain Flannel. Shout out to Captain Flannel, back on YouTube, our biggest fan on YouTube. He says they spend too much of the budget on equipment to militarize and police inside of paying and training.
Instead, that's probably what he meant.
I think that's supposed to be instead.
Oh, look, watch this. Instead, not inside.
There you go.
Good job, Captain. We knew you were furiously typing.
Shout out Nick Brown, Nick Beasy, Blue Shield Gang, holds it together, holds it down better than any other in the world through policy, procedure, law, qualified immunity, unions, violence among the rank, bro. I gotta give you these. Gotta give you one of these.
You are watching a master at work.
Will Santana is in the building. Will Santana says it's frustrating with my Caucasian friends only posting on social media about rioting, looting, etc., but don't have a single post about an officer's knee on George Floyd's neck for 9 minutes. Yeah, I mean, I hear exactly. Oh, Ian Townsend, what's up? Ian says he's got a long one. Ian says they need to stop training the cops like they do the military. As you said earlier today, this is a job. The oath isn't the same as the military. Their oath isn't about service to the country and obey the orders those appointed over them. It's not about giving their service and their lives to the country. Their oath is to protect and to serve. I feel like that is often forgotten, to the protect and serve part. I feel like we are often afraid of our police more than we feel safe and served by them. So my question to you, Autumn, with all of those comments is, what do you fear most? Obviously, the obvious answer is your child dying by police officer, which is not at all something that my mom or anybody else's mom on this day has thought of. So aside from, what is it that you fear most as far as them being out of the house? How do you want them to conduct themselves when they're out? Give us a walkthrough of like what it's like when your kid says, I'm going out. What is going out for Autumn Sonata's family before they go out?
My oldest son, he's the only one who goes out, really. My 13-year-old, he goes as far as a friend's house. And for my 18-year-old, going out looks like, for me, being honest about where you are. First of all, my son knows that I'm a little off when it comes to worry. So he knows I can hack his device and find out if he's...
You anonymous for your family, huh?
Yeah, when he turned 18, I said, okay,
Autumn Stark.
You're free. You're 18 now. I'm gonna let you explore this thing on your own. But if I catch you lying, I'm backing your stuff. So he has that little fear there.
Oh my God.
But he tried it one time and I found him. He was like, Mom, how'd you know?
You tried it?
Yeah, he knows better. So but he has to always be honest about where he's going. And I think that sense of fear has embedded that in him. So I ask him where he's going, who he's going to be around, and what time does he expect to be back, blah, blah. Always give him the option of telling me as opposed to me telling him, you need to be back at this time. You can't go here. Because then I think that opens the door for him to be more honest and direct with me and gives him choices, as an adult. Instead of being treated like a child. Because I think when you treat an 18-year-old or an adult like a child, they tend to rebel. So I allow him to explore and, enjoy his freedom. I always tell him to be aware of his surroundings, who he's around. And he knows that his friends they don't necessarily always have his best interests at heart. So he has to watch them. And above all else, I always taught him how to say no. And be okay with his no. Like, you're not going to miss out on anything important. If you say, no, I don't want to be in this environment, have your own whip and be able to exit stage left at any time. Because he's seen, situations get completely left when the person involved has been completely innocent and, they can't do anything about it. So he doesn't want to be in this situation. He values what he has at home. He values his life. He's smart enough. The dude is an introvert basically anyway. So he's not pressed to be out in the crowd. So, yeah, I really don't have those concerns. Now, I can tell you about one incident where it had me freaking out. He was coming from the gym, and I was going to pick him up. But then he called me and said, hey, Mom, a friend just saw me at the smoothie shop. He's going to bring me home. I'm like, okay, cool. Who is his friend? What kind of car he drives? This is after Ahmaud Arbery, right after he got shot and killed. Who's his friend and what car is he driving? He didn't text me back. So he texted me probably about 20 minutes later, said, My friend couldn't bring me home. His mom called tripping, so he had to drop me off at the park, and he had to go home. Now, mind you, the park is usually a safe place. There's plenty of, people there, things like that. But this park is directly across from the police station in our area. So as a mom, after Ahmaud Arbery got shot and killed and, all these other things going on, I go into freak out mode. And I'm usually not this intense, but I became very intense and aggravated. And it was, where are you? Oh, I'm standing in front of the tree, in front of the, on the sidewalk in front of the park. So you're in plain sight of the police station. That's not safe. In my mind, you're not safe. I need you to go to the pavilion and sit down.
Wow.
Are there policemen in the park? Are you looking like it's raining outside? You're a black man standing under a tree.
Factors aren't looking good. They're adding up. It was dark. It was raining. He was suspicious.
I'm like,
Bro, the Uchi
black
are on
guy.
patrol.
I'm freaking out. I'm like, go sit in the pavilion and be near other people. I said, there are other policemen in the park. He's like, Mom, I don't know. So I get in the car. I'm zooming down the street to go get him. This slow car in front of me. I'm freaking out. I'm blowing the horn. Like, I'm in rage mode at this moment. And mind you, this is where our children are supposed to be safe. At a park around police officers. They shouldn't be worried about anything. But I'm more concerned for every other reason. So I get there. He's not at the pavilion that I told him to go sit at. Now I'm like, who has my child? Where is my child? Did he, be so naive to get in the car with a police officer or what have you? So I'm calling him. He's not answering. I look over. He's at another pavilion. So I go over there. He get in the car. He's looking at me like, Mom, what is wrong with you? I'm stressed out at this point. I don't even want to speak to him. Get in the car. Let's go. I didn't say anything the whole route. I didn't want to take that frustration out on him. But once I calmed down and we got home, we talked about it. He understood, but he didn't understand that feeling at that time. He didn't understand all the emotions I was going through. And that's something that we have to talk to our kids about, make them aware of, because it was a real thing. So
that's insane, bro. Like, go ahead. I'll tell him after James. Go ahead, James.
No, I mean that's kind of. I've been kind of wanting to ask you a question about your son, and that kind of leads into the question I've been meaning to ask. Basically, after the Ahmaud Arbery, George Floyd thing, did your son in any way, like you said he kind of had an attitude about having to be kind of cooped up. Did that change his view in any way, like, about how being out can be just as dangerous? Because, I mean, that situation you described sounds like something, he would be worried about.
Yeah, for him, he's like, his mentality is not that it can't happen to me, but I won't put myself in a position for it to happen. Like, he don't go jogging around the neighborhood. And our neighborhood is predominantly black. He went to a predominantly white school. He didn't hang out after school because they had racial tension at his school. They had acts of violence, racism at his school. And while he was confident in knowing that you can't beat me, you can't take me down or whatever, he still was aware enough to say, I'm not going to be in that situation or hang around that crowd. And he's even had friends who participated in like little ignorant stunts or whatever, and they were expelled from school. But he was aware enough the night before to say, I'm not going because I feel like something's going to happen. Like, they too hyped about doing this senior prank. I don't want to be in the mix of that. So he didn't go. And lo and behold, something happened to that kid, and he got expelled and lost his.
What happened to the senior? If you don't mind, talking prank. What happened to senior?
So
prank?
the senior, they had a senior prank where they were not torturing, but kind of teasing, the juniors or what have you. And this one senior, he was the one that was caught anyway. They hung a junior from a tree, like tied him up to a tree, and shot him with paintballs and something else. They all thought it was funny. But the center for their team was involved in it. Him and Kai were really close. He was involved in it, and my son's like, I'm not going. He wasn't going to go that night because his friend was too hyped, going out. So he felt like he was going to do something stupid, so he didn't go. And he lost his basketball scholarship because of that.
That's crazy. Yeah. That's. I mean, there's so much going on, and we were that generation that thought that that slavery, post-slavery doctrine teaching that has been passed down from generation to generation, we thought that it was going to end with our generation. I remember being in high school thinking that it was okay. But it seems like we've almost regressed. And now you're seeing things on TikTok with seniors losing their scholarships because they're making racist TikToks and things like that, not being allowed to graduate. So, you know, what are some of I would think that you're a little bit more locked down as a parent, but, you know, has there been any times as of late that your kids brought you content-wise something that you had to kind of double back and teach them some things about the world so that they understood that they could be armed better about it?
There were a couple of instances at his high school, and Kai, he's good about staying ahead of those things, so it doesn't typically affect him as much. He had one student, and this was probably about a month ago. They were getting their cap and gown, you know, picking them up from school or whatever. And the next day, one of the students went on Twitter and said something to the effect of, "This cap and gown this gown is wrinkled. I don't know why these niggas think I'm supposed to iron this," because he ironed it and put a hole in his gown. So he referred to the admin or whoever, the yearbook staff or whoever he was referring to as niggas. And yeah, there was a whole investigation that went behind that. And while he didn't personally know the kid, but he knew of the kid, and he felt like he didn't mean it in that context, but he was also like, you gotta be careful of where you're expressing yourself and what you're saying, because while it can be taken out of context, you still don't have the privilege to say things like that. Mm-hmm. So, you know.
And Autumn hitting on that. I've seen about 9 videos this week with white people getting popped for calling somebody out their name. Now, I'm not promoting it or advocating it, but I'm just saying a lot of people are fed up and they're not even talking about it. You call me that again, it's not even call me that again. It's just boom. Now, and you got punched in the face and you understand why I don't do it again. And that's where people are at right now. And the thing is, more and more people are getting to that point because more and more people are seeing how ignorance is all around us right now. Even though we knew that before, but now it's, like I said before, we can't go back. Now everybody's getting called out. Everybody's getting canceled. Everybody's finding out everything. So there's zero tolerance. It's a zero tolerance right now.
Shout out to
Definitely got to be.
Shout out to Emily Moore. To piggyback on that, she said, "It infuriates me that people try to justify murder by vilifying victims. Cops aren't supposed to kill people, period. Guilty, innocent, it doesn't matter. We know at this point you don't even have to be awake to be murdered." So yes, so to kind of wrap up to thinking about the kids, these are our future leaders. What have and Derek, you kind of touched on this a little bit with Jace. You know, between the two of you, we'll start with Autumn. What are some of the things that your children have expressed to you that is worrisome about the next generation's perception of things?
I know, not my son so much, but my 13-year-old son and my daughter, they've expressed concern about certain things being forced on them in school. My 13-year-old son in particular, he has concerns about homosexuality being forced on him in school. He's one who does not, his timber's a little shorter than my 18-year-old. And so while today, there are kids who will aggressively pursue a heterosexual person and, cry out discrimination or prejudice if you don't, attend to their needs. And his concern is that, will I get in trouble for defending myself or telling someone no, or, fighting someone who keeps, disrespecting me. So his concern is that my daughter, even though she's only 9, she's a very sensitive person. And her concern is, will she be in trouble for defending someone who's getting bullied? Because she's already experienced that in school. Luckily, I'm good with their teachers, so they know their demeanor. But she was worried that she would get in trouble or chastised for defending someone who was, quiet or reserved or what have you, and it was kind of odd. So those concerns my children have. My little ones, they're still very traditional, like very much alpha 5 and 6-year-old. They fight and you just don't. You look at them the wrong way. So that's something I have to cover.
Gotcha. Derek, what about you on your end? Other than Jace, what are some of the other things you've heard?
Well, I mean, I got a SWAT. Of course, I have my own twins who turned 8 this month. Jace is a month older than 8, and then my stepdaughter, she turned 12 earlier this year. So I have a group of soon-to-be 3rd graders and then a 6th grader, and things come up that I wasn't even sure that would come up. I'm going to bring up a couple of apps, TikTok and its junior version, Likey. A lot of the users on there are content creators. There's a lot of cultural appropriation going on, and it's something that I had to address. Be like, hey, just so you know, just because you see these people using this type of music, this type of language, this type of everything, just so you know, here is your culture, okay? And there's a level of respect that I need you to learn right now, because I'm not going to send you out into this world thinking that you listen to all things hip hop because you're so used to seeing every single thing out there influenced by hip hop, or these little 3-second, 8-second, minute-long videos on TikTok and Likey that use some clip of some song that you don't need to be hearing, first of all, that you don't even know what they're talking about. You don't need to be learning. I need to be blocking you from that anyway. So I have to have that whole conversation. And then you have to realize, be like, it's appropriate because it's popular. It's real fun. It's real fun to use the swag. It's real awesome. It gets popular. I get to use it, and I have to express, hey, you can't be insensitive to that, because I need you to realize, hey, here's where I stand on this, and I need you to recognize it when it's being directed toward you, when it's being directed toward you in a bullying manner, when someone's coming at you left because you're mixed, because you have a mixed father, you have because you're mixed yourself. And when you're seeing how these interactions because of other children, my concerns are their parents. My concerns are the fact that these parents aren't having that conversation at home, that, hey, don't just pick on somebody for these reasons. And if you're being picked on, you're more than welcome to defend yourself. And if you see somebody being picked on, I need you to read the room before you think that you need to defend. I need you to outwit somebody before you have to use those knuckles. You know what I mean? And it's something to where me being in my mid-30s, I'm competing with a 22-year-old parent who has a similar age child, and that 22-year-old and we have a generational gap between us, because your ideals and everything are totally different than mine. I know 22-year-old Derek had different ideals than 36-year-old Derek, but when I'm interacting with a parent at the school, and I'm like, I can't even have a conversation with you to even explain why you know what? It's just, what are the kids listening to today? Like, that's how I felt like I'm the boomer in the situation. And you're just like, I'm sitting here arguing because they have an 8-year-old that behaves like a 22-year-old, and I have an 8-year-old that I don't want to behave like a 22-year-old. And I have to have this conversation. So that's the part that frustrates me, because, you know, that's a whole generational gap that's teaching a whole new generation what their values are. And it's a huge cycle. It always starts with each person. We always want to break the cycle, and then we all, you know, end up screwing up our kids anyway, because that's just how it's going to be as a parent. But ultimately, what I'm trying to detract from the situation, take, subtract, and add, divide, multiply, all the things.
Because I'm trying to do the math.
And I'm trying to do the math. I just have to stick with, hey, here are my values. Here's what I want to send you into the world with. Okay. How did this make you feel? Okay. This made you feel negative when you saw this happening to another child. I'm glad that made you feel negative. It means you have a heart. Okay. It means you were compassionate. It means you were empathetic. That's okay to feel that way. It's okay to feel hurt that you saw them hurting. That means you're doing the right thing. And I'm gonna brag on another one. Rima said she heard a girl tell her that she was sad and upset and she wanted to hurt herself. And she went straight to the counselor in school to say, hey, this is a friend of mine and I don't want anything to happen to her. She said this. And she reported it. And she came home and said, hey, I felt bad. I felt like I was tattling on her. And Priscilla and I both had the conversation. You did every single thing right in this situation. I wish I knew more adults like you that would do that, because that was something that I was proud to see, that I know Priscilla was proud to see. because that was the right thing to do. So you did the right thing. And her even having that conflict, you know, of being, oh, I was a tattletale because I already knew that other sixth graders came down on her for doing that. I already knew it. But that means that she rose above that. So that gives me hope. It gives me hope when I see those things. It gives me hope when I see that the society that we're trying to create, especially right now, since we're not going back, we might be headed in the right direction. We just have a lot of work to do because, as I was talking with Nick Brown before, he and I, we both thought this was the last generation that we'd have to deal with what we're dealing with right now. But we're not the last generation. So we have to deal with it right now.
In many
that's
ways,
just what it is. It's not going back.
Yeah, in many ways, we're the first generation of the new civil rights movement.
It is a cold civil war right now. Yeah. It is a cold civil war.
Again?
It is a cold civil war right now.
The player way.
From henceforth, we shall call this the cold civil war. That's how we will refer to that on this podcast. We are in the middle.
Shout out to the Red Scare from earlier. That's what that segue was.
Yeah, cold civil war. And I want to talk to our control on this podcast. Our control on this podcast is always Nathan. Nate is one of those guys who is never on the extremes. He's not chaotic neutral. He's not lawful neutral. He's just neutral. And not only that, but he also comes from a completely different culture. He's been in America for a long period of time, has family in America, and has lived as an American for a long period of time. But he also has ties to Korea as well. And so he's got a different perspective that I think can be beneficial to this. Nate, hearing everything that you've heard in this podcast so far, what is it like to observe what's happening from your perspective as a single man, doesn't have any kids, but has an international awareness that most Americans are terrible at?
I mean, for starters, to be honest, as I get older, the more I appreciate that I did not grow up in this country.
Bar. Set up.
He ain't even trying to be mean. That's the thing. He ain't even trying to be rude.
Get it.
Not to say, like, not to bash.
No, bash it. Let's go, B.
No, I mean, like, you know, I do love this country. Half of me is American.
Yeah.
But half of me is Korean. I was born there. I grew up there all the way up from birth to graduating high school. And there's a huge difference in culture. You know, and I hate to generalize, but Americans it's a very me culture. Whereas Asia, specifically Korea, is a very we culture, you know. Even when it comes down to stuff like how we handle being locked down and quarantined, you know, Koreans accepted, okay, we're going to do this, and they locked down. Here, after a month, people are whining about being locked down, you know. Some people don't even want to wear a mask when they go outside, things like that. So it's tough, but as I've been here, I've been in this country now since 2003, so 17 years, which is about half my life. And I've accepted, like, this is my home. Will I ever live back in Korea? I don't know. And I don't have the same sort of, you know, how you guys talk about your interactions with police and things like that. Like, I don't experience that. I've never, but I can empathize. I mean, you know, one day when I do have kids, like what I'll tell them, I have no idea. You know, it depends on the state of the world when I decide to finally do that. But, you know, I'm trying to figure out how to word this without like sounding like I'm bashing on the country.
No,
but,
dude, I love that. We need that observation.
Honestly, there's a lot of work that needs to be fucking done.
You're not being overly critical. You're just giving observational moments. That's not critical.
Yeah.
Describe it.
We're a selfish race. We're a selfish culture. You know,
we are.
Here. Yeah, very selfish.
You saw,
and it is a very me mentality that people need to stop.
Yeah.
Or start adopting a more we mentality. But people think of that as like bad, you know, like, oh, if we adopt this we mentality, then we must be like some sort of socialist or communist. But it's not true. It's just, you know, you're thinking as a community rather than just one specific person.
It's
You're
about
telling me a community of a nation of people that are somehow supposed to coexist and have a commingling existence for the entirety of their life. You're telling me the idea should maybe be let's all be okay together. Is that what you're saying, Nate?
Yes, it's possible. Yeah,
You're watching
and you can.
exactly.
What a concept.
I feel very grateful to have grown up in the place that I did and to observe the things that I have, like growing up my first 18 years of life, because that set me up to be, moving to the United States was a huge culture shock, and I hated it for a very number of years. I always look back to my breaks in college to go home during Christmas and summer break. They're like, finally, like, okay, this is what life is. And not to say South Korea is some sort of utopian society. By no means. It has its own problems too, but it's just a very sense of togetherness that I don't feel quite here outside of like my core group of friends. Still to this day, my best friends are friends that I grew up in Korea with.
Yep.
And it's a group of 9 of us. We've grown up since kids, and they're still my best friends to this day.
And I think that's what's beautiful about that culture that you brought to America is I've seen this in action, where when you guys go out and party and you hang out, y'all stay as a unit, no matter the arguments that you may have or disagreements.
Yeah.
Always come back together. And I think we can definitely we can learn from that. Eleanor, who I believe is from Russia originally, she said she agrees with everything that you're saying about the American culture, Nate, and about what she's observed as well. And she says, but I think underneath there's a lot of kindness, but in there it's hard to weed out with all of the capitalist ideas. The community aspect is missing a lot versus some other countries or spaces, even versus something like the military and community.
It's also a country that believes ideology was worth more than fact. That's the second problem right there. We got to stop thinking, okay, I label myself as whatever, a liberal or conservative. Because I do that, I automatically think the other side is wrong, no matter what they say.
Well, yeah, and the thing about partying up, the thing about partying up that you have to remember too is whether you realize it or not, by calling yourself aligning yourself with one party or another, you disalign yourself with what it means to be American itself. Like to just align yourself with what's best for America. I feel like I live in a country that is in a constant cold civil war. And that's why I love what Derek says, is the cold civil war started when Obama was going through the whole electorate process. The beginnings of how nasty the Tea Party movement rose up in response to that kind of is what began this cold civil war. And now we're in the birth of it. Like we're in the vinegar strokes of it. You know what I'm saying? So it's one of those things that we're constantly, Ian Townsend says it's become America with M-E in the middle, a mere. Yeah. So I agree. I think I'm going to make a very broad generalization. So forgive me at home if you're watching, and feel free to chime in and disagree with me. But I feel like our generation more and more are starting to align ourselves toward being nonpartisan voters and respecting a lifestyle of being nonpartisan. Because what does it benefit you to align yourself with one side or another? There's right now we're in a situation where we have two candidates it's like a mirror match in Mortal Kombat. They're the same, man. So it's just one of those things where, who do you vote for? Who do you align yourself with?
Let's hope that we're all smart enough to do our own research, do our due diligence, check up on who the candidates are, make our own opinions. Don't rely on what others say. Don't rely on the news. They're just
definitely don't rely on the news.
Like,
according to the news,
put in the work and do your own research. That's what people should do, and that should trickle down all the way to local elections. That's what people vote for the president, but also vote for your local elections. That's what's really important, where your vote really counts.
Yeah. Listen, there you go. You heard it there. So, first and foremost, before I go any further, Autumn Sonata, you did your thing. I mean, ladies and gentlemen, everyone in between. Autumn, I'm going to give you the center stage. Give us a chance. You have the camera. Plug whatever you got going on. It's your commercial.
Oh gosh, I was not prepared for this. I just would like to take this opportunity to urge parents to talk to your children. Step outside of your routine and know that this is the new norm. It's also an opportunity and a privilege to cultivate a new way of being for yourself and your children. I know for a lot of parents it's a stressful time. Things have been interrupted. Your lifestyle has been interrupted. Your children's lifestyle has been interrupted. But take the time to actually consider their feelings, consider their environment, and make changes because it starts at home. So just, I urge my parents to actually be attentive and present for your children.
There you go. And you're a podcaster. Let's talk about your podcast, girl.
Oh, man. So
every
Friday on we go live on Facebook Live on the page is Real Talk to You. So Real REALTALK, the number 2, the letter U. We go live every Friday on our podcast. I host with, oh gosh, it can range from 4 to 6 gentlemen. So again, I'm the only female. And we talk about a wide variety of things, mainly focusing on dating and relationships. I'm single, so I have a different perspective with dating with children and, my process in that. So tune in every Friday. We'll be on tomorrow and that kind of thing.
There you go, Autumn. Well, ladies and gentlemen, everyone, with all due respect, this has been Autumn Sonata. And thank you for coming on our show.
Thank you for having me. This was good.
Appreciate it, Autumn.
We'll be back again, okay?
Oh, yeah.
Very enlightening.
All right. We'll talk to you. That was awesome. As you can see, the Playway Podcast, we are making an effort. We've heard in bringing on more female voices. I think it's an incredibly important thing that we learn to embrace the power that women have and endorse that. I mean, I'm actually thinking about in the comments, I'm thinking about making it to where we only ever have female guests and we never bring men on ever, unless they have a woman in camera with them. Comment in the comments right now. Tell me if you support that. I would love in solidarity to make it to where we only book female guests when we bring guests on. So y'all comment on that and see if you like that. Shout out to everybody who's watching right now. We truly appreciate it. My panelists on the dais, we are at just past the 90-minute mark. So we're going to wrap it up right now. Ladies and gentlemen, and everyone between, with all due respect, I've been your resident podcast DJ, BK, helping you understand how to do social change in media
the player way,
along with my co-captain, Nate.
It's me.
And Derek, Mr.
You already know.
Corrupting the system.
Yes, you already know. Like I said on the first limited series, you know what I mean? Hindsight's 2020 prepares us for when history repeats itself. You know what I'm saying? Free-ish since 1865. Stay weird out there.
Absolutely. And of course, we got producer James in the building. Producer James, man, always helping us fact check and bring in all of those exclusives.
The player way.
Exclusive.
Appreciate you. Just want to say, it was very enlightening to hear those words from Derek and Autumn about parenting children in this day and age, and how parents have to prepare their children for what's going on right now, and hopefully that will help them in the future. But the main thing is just for everyone out there, just listen and love one another, and I hope to talk to you again soon.
Absolutely. We're going to wrap that up just like that. Ladies and gentlemen, and everyone in between, with all due respect, with the mask on, the Pokeball mask.
Mask off.
Protect yourselves out there. It's important to know and to note that there's a lot of different ideas out there. There's a lot of different conflicting beliefs about what's going on. On this episode, we didn't even get a chance to talk about the whole Aunt Jemima thing. I encourage you to go on my Instagram at Beast Season, all one word, or follow me on Facebook, BK Jackson, not the one that plays saxophone. You'll see my exactly.
All I heard was like, what was that? Baker Street by Jay Rafferty. That's not whatever.
But as you can see, we bring you social change with comedy. Okay, it's important that we laugh during these crazy times, because if you don't, you will get incredibly depressed. So,
Doctor, I am Pagliacci.
Exactly. So feel free, if you need someone to reach out to me, inbox me. Don't ask me for permission, just inbox me and I'll talk to you. I got time. Derek, I'm sure, is in a similar situation. Nate, don't hit him, because Nate
No. I don't even do social
Let that
media
man have his
anymore.
days off.
No, but I mean, but the Playaway podcast is for you here. If you have any questions that you didn't get read on this episode because we ran out of time, feel free to keep them for the next episode. Inbox me, and I'll probably tell you to save it for the next episode and write it in. But y'all out there, we really appreciate y'all. It's because of you all that we're back. And so with fervent fervor, I want to let you know that you're going to see a commercial at the end of this podcast that is reminding you about the series that I was director of photography for on Amazon Prime. So please, after the ending theme song, you're going to see a trailer for that. Please endorse that. Give us some more views. We're over 5,000 streams right now, so keep it going. The more you endorse the content, the independent production that we're putting out, the more it's going to make room for it. Just to give you a heads up, Derek and I are in development, along with James, who's going to be our camera guy and producer, for the Captain's Challenge Season 2, and it's going to be more like a man versus food thing that we may be trying to sell to the Travel Channel or something. So endorse our work, support your local hustle. Go to playlifeyourway.com.
Get the full story at playlifeyourway.com.
and support all the content that we have coming out. So that's what's going down. If there's nothing else for the good order, I plan to close it. All those say aye.
Can I say one thing?
Yeah, go ahead, Nate.
Can I plug something?
Yeah, man, plug it, B.
So one of my best friends,
Yeah, go ahead, bro.
him and two of his friends started a coffee company,
Do it.
Fluid. So what it is I don't drink coffee, so I haven't actually tried it, but my friends who have tried this said it's pretty good.
Yo,
It's
Nate.
just coffee with electrolytes in it.
Nate, Nate, give them my information. Tell them to send us some graphics. We'll plug them. We'll put them on
Yeah.
every episode or something.
It's vegan, dairy-free, and gluten-free for people that care.
I'm very free guy.
There's a lot
But
of people that
it's
care about
the
that.
selling
Wow.
point is it's coffee with electrolytes. It's supposed to help with your energy levels if you work out and things like that. But Fluid,
work out,
they
but
just launched. So you can go to, what is the website? Fuck me. Fluidcoldbrew.co. Fluid FLUIDCOLDBREW.co.
Do it.
You can buy them online if you want to. I do have steaks, so means something to me.
So y'all can expect to see some collateral about Fluid Coffee on the next. So if you came in late and want to get a little bit more information, let's see. There's a comment that just popped in. Hold on.
He late.
Jay Daniel is so late. How dare you, sir? How dare you, sir? We're at the end of the episode. Jay Daniel is one of the best photographers in the world, and he's also
Shout out.
Yeah, shout out to him. So that's what's going on. Ladies and gentlemen, everyone in between, with all due respect, we've talked as much as we need to talk. We're going to end this right now. No matter what lifestyle you choose, and no matter what things that scare you or frighten you or bring you joy, just make sure you do those things
The Player Way.
We'll see y'all next week.
Studio engineer and producer, James Turner. Contributing writers Ian Robert Parsons, Darius Prather, Johnny Robinson, and Jonathan Barron. And I'm Darren Marlar, showing you how to do voiceovers the player way. Get this and more lifestyle news at PlayLifeYourWay.com.
Covering up pain is like stacking heavy bricks on a shallow shelf.
If you're ready to become inspired, then this is for you.
At 270, I was just a mess. Depressed, unhappy, and there was no self-love, self-worth at all.
I played football to save a woman that I knew she was using drugs that could take her life. So when I stepped on the field, I knew I had to be exceptional.
Everything in the journey is there to break you down. You come to Los Angeles and everyone looks better than you. They probably have a better education.
I told them, you're not hungry than me. You don't want this enough.
I tried to write a story that took place in Vermont, and it was a white family. No, this isn't you.
I had about $30-something to my name.
I only had $400-something in my pocket.
I was just diagnosed with a mini stroke.
2 years, 95 rejections.
And there's a discipline behind it. When I look in the mirror today, I see love.
There's two types of people in this world. People that are addicted to taking and people that's addicted to giving.
Suck it up, buttercup, and let's get the day started.